European Union handed down final approval on January 26 to ruthlessly phase out all Russian gas imports completely by the end of 2027, slamming the door on Moscow's energy stranglehold. This seismic move forms the cornerstone of the bloc's unyielding crusade to decisively end dependence on Russian energy imports that fueled Europe's vulnerability for decades. These ironclad measures will snap into binding force just 6 weeks after the sweeping regulation officially enters into effect across all 27 member states. Official reports confirm the timeline. The harsh LNG imports ban is slated to hammer home in early 2027, hotly followed by a total pipeline gas cutoff severing the last threads of Moscow's grip relentlessly. To ruthlessly stop Russian gas sneaking into the bloc indirectly through backdoor routes, vigilant members will meticulously verify the true origin of every imported gas cargo. Individual countries must submit detailed diversification master plans by March 1st, outlining concrete strategies on precisely how to replace tainted Russian gas with reliable alternatives swiftly. The regulation slaps hefty penalties for brazen non-compliance, hitting individuals with crushing fines soaring up to €2.5 million for willful violations without mercy. Meanwhile, rogue non-complying firms face even steeper punishment, fined a whopping €40 million or punishing up to 3.5% of their massive global annual turnover, whichever stings hardest. This landmark decision faithfully follows an earlier EU iron vow back in October 2025 to methodically phase out every last drop of insidious Russian fuel imports choking the economy. Despite slashing Russian gas imports by an impressive 75% since the 2021 invasion, the EU clings as Russia's single largest and most lucrative energy buyer on Earth. LNG purchases funneled from Russia have paradoxically surged during the grinding war as traditional pipeline deliveries plummeted under sanctions and sabotage campaigns. Donald Trump eagerly urged a rattled Europe to urgently replace dodgy Russian gas with bountiful, reliable American LNG supplies flooding markets at competitive prices.
The European Union has decided to stop our import of Russian energy. This is a historic decision. It means that we will no longer allow for Putin to blackmail us. We will no longer allow for Putin to weaponize energy against us. And of course it also means that we will no longer indirect help to finance Kremlin's war. It's also clear that we do not want to replace one dependency with another, so we need to diversify, but first and foremost we need to produce more of our own energy. One of the reasons why we need to produce much more of our own energy is that it is not good to be reliable on any country in the world fundamentally for our energy supply. So we need to be very careful that now that we're moving out of Russian energy, that we're not replacing that dependency with other dependencies. So we're working very hard on first and foremost reducing our consumption of fossils by being more energy efficient, but also by producing more renewable energy and of course also diversifying who it is that we then buy our energy from. So there's no security without energy security. Obviously our societies depend on having access to energy. So first and foremost, to be able to not depend on Russia, that's a part of our security strategy in Europe, but also the protection of our physical infrastructure is very, very important, and that's why it's very useful to have discussions like this with NATO. We in the European Commission also works very closely with NATO on these issues. Okay, thank you.
However, landlocked holdouts Hungary and Slovakia have vowed to ferociously challenge the EU's Russian gas ban hammer in a dramatic showdown before the courts. Hungary will launch blistering legal proceedings straight before the prestigious Court of Justice of the EU, CJU, to shred the regulation's legality ruthlessly. Both defiant nations blasted that the EU slyly exploited a legal loophole to masquerade the crippling ban as mere policy rather than outright economic sanctions warfare. Hungary and Slovakia remain perilously reliant on cheap Russian gas pipelines and warn this suicidal ban could skyrocket unbearable household energy costs for millions of citizens. Nationalist strongmen Viktor Orban and Robert Fico have long and vocally opposed brutally cutting vital energy lifelines with reliable partner Russia at any cost. I will start, ladies and gentlemen, with the topic concerning the ban the import of gas in any form into the territory of the European Union, with the latest date being the end, or November 1, 2027. There are various dates, but as far as Slovakia is concerned, the relevant date for us is November 1, 2027, when with 100% certainty, based on the valid decision of the European Union authorities, it will stop flowing. Not only to Slovakia but to the entire European Union, gas from the Russian Federation in any form. Whether it is liquefied gas or gas that goes through traditional pipelines. I will not elaborate too much. I will not comment on it. You know my opinion, it is the completion of the EU's energy suicide. And we will all pay dearly for this foolish ideological decision. We will all pay dearly for this decision. You know, the first step that significantly harmed us was the stoppage of Russian energy transit through the territory of the Slovak Republic. This decision was made by the Ukrainian president, and this decision costs us up to €500 million annually. This is the loss in transit fees for the gas that we use to transport from our pipelines further into Europe. Today, as a small country, we continue to take Russian gas, although it now constitutes only a minority of the gas volume supplied, through the pipeline called Turkstream, which goes south, through Hungary to Slovakia. But this, as I have already said, since we have long-term contracts with Russian partners, will end no later than November 1, 2027. From that moment, we will not be able to take any gas from the Russian Federation. I will say it in Slovak, and I believe that by then the war will end and we will all come to our senses. Because cutting ourselves off from Russian energy in this way is suicide. Both countries' fiery foreign ministers passionately argued the reckless measure savagely undermines their core national interests and sovereign energy security imperatives. Peter Sajato said, and I quote, "Hungary will take legal action before the Court of Justice of the EU as soon as the decision on RE-Power EU is officially published. We will use every legal means to have it annulled. The RE-Power EU plan is based on a legal trick, presenting a sanctions measure as a trade policy decision in order to avoid unanimity." The Hungarian position is that this is a matter of national competence, so Hungary will protect its service. We have adopted a law on this, and it is unacceptable. The fact that the European Union has marked a breach of obligations regarding this is an important issue. External interference in elections, we have seen examples of this. During elections it must be prevented. It is the sovereign right of every nation to independently ensure this. Decide to lead the country, and the integrity of the elections is a fundamental national interest. What is also important today here at the Exchange Affairs Council, which is why I came, on the agenda is the adoption of the REPower regulation. This is the regulation based on which it will be phased out. Russian gas and oil would be phased out from Europe. Hungary's position has been clear from the very beginning. We opposed this, as it fundamentally undermines Hungary's energy security. And in such a difficult situation, when the Hungarian government is doing everything it can under extremely timely circumstances to protect the utility costs of the Hungarian people, to keep utility costs low, the European Council is now attacking Hungary by approving this regulation. This regulation is flawed in many ways, as it fundamentally affects national sovereignty. Determining the energy mix would fall under national competence, but even if we considered it an EU competence, it would still be a sanction regime, which would require unanimity. However, they reclassified it with a legal trick as a trade policy issue, and thus, even with unanimity, it can be accepted by a majority vote. This is what's happening now. It violates the principle of solidarity, fundamentally undermines Hungary's energy security. This must be prevented. Moreover, it also harms the Union's competitiveness goals, since due to high energy prices, Europe has fallen behind in the competitiveness race. According to Section 191 of the Regulation on the Functioning of the European Union, this would be a national competence. Nevertheless, the European Union is interfering in Hungary's services and wants to impose on us this decision. From the very first moment, we stand for protecting the interests of the Hungarian people, for the reduction of utility costs, and we will sue the European Commission and the Council if they adopt this regulation.